This is the video game Two Point Hospital, and I'm going to talk about training rooms and how you train your staff. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to build a training room. You can see that I have two of them here side by side. For most hospitals, I build around 3 training rooms. But remember that the training rooms take up valuable space that you could use to build something else. So having a minimum, obviously, of 1 is a good idea, but be careful about building too many. And I don't think there's any reason to build more than 4. The second thing that I would advise is that you want to make it as small as possible. I don't see any reason to train more than 4 people at a time. You could put more desks, but the problem is you have to pull these guys out of your workforce. That means he can't be working while he's being trained, and you can't expect to take a lot of your staff out of work, out of employment. So I only leave it to a small number of desks, and I only train a few people at a time. It is going to make it less efficient because you do have to also take out a trainer or hire one. If you have a lot of money, it's not a big deal, but if you don't have a lot of money, it's cost inefficient, especially at the higher levels. So you also have this object right here, which is obviously a bookshelf, and it can improve your training efficiency. Basically, speed is the measure at which training is efficient, so people can train faster. You have to train one type of thing at a time. You can only do one skill at a time, and there's 2 ways to pick the trainee. One is to go for the courses. Actually, there's 3 ways. The other one is to go for a trainee, and the other one, a trainer, and the other one is go for a trainee. I usually go for a trainee, and I pick the guy that I want, like this dude over here, and then maybe find someone who's similar. Sorry, I did it wrong. Here's a case where you could do 2 at a time, which would be this dude over here and this one over here. So you can see I would be able to train both at the same time, and I would take one of the trainers, which would be, I think, yeah, this one right here. And the course obviously would be Psychiatry 5. The other thing you do is you start with the course and you work your way down. You can hire a trainer, but if you're low on cash, I advise you not to do it. There is one issue that you really have to be concerned about, is that as they level up, as you train them more, you got to pay more money for their salary. So if you go into wherever the menus are and you look at your salaries, you're going to find that the pay is going to go up to a point that you won't be able to afford to pay your staff, and your expenses versus your revenue. If your expenses are too high, you lose money, and your only choice in terms of staff is to fire people. You cannot untrain them. So then what you have to do is you have to go fire people, and you're going to fire the people that had the most training. You understand what I mean? So what's going to happen is you're going to do training for people that's going to cost you money to do it, and then you have to get rid of them later because you cannot afford it. So that is one of the issues in regards to training that you have to deal with. You want to put your training rooms as far away from everything as possible. I'm going to show you an example. You can see that the entrance to my hospital is in this area right here. A lot of people come up from over here. I believe it's a subway system and a helicopter, so you could move the entrance anywhere. But you don't really want the training room to be too close to the door. You want people to be able to get to these rooms as quickly as possible. Well, this happens to be marketing. This one doesn't matter. So the training, I moved it next to the marketing. It used to be on the other side over here. And I moved it next to the marketing because the marketing people, for the most part, work on marketing. And it means that the doctors and nurses can move into here. So if this doctor is needed in another room, he will be in this building already. He doesn't have to walk around. And obviously, the fracture ward and the other wards, you want to use up the space at the end, a little bit more efficient in terms of space. The restrooms, the leisure or the staff rooms, I try to put them as far away as possible. This is one that I could move. I could move it around, shift all these rooms over, and put the staff room in the back, and the same with the restrooms. Now, bear in mind, if people have trouble finding the right room, then it will take them longer. They might not find it. So the other thing you might want to do is you have different skills. I'm going to pull up a person here. For example, this guy. This is a radiology skill for a doctor. But if you look over here, you see you also have genetics. You could have this guy doing radiology and genetics. They're both unique skills. And the chances that both are busy at the same time might actually be low. So it makes sense to kind of put them together. The same could be true with some of the other skills. I usually don't use motivation. I usually don't use the training masterclass. So the point that I'm making is that you can adjust your skills you can try a different skill for each hospital. Looking for a nurse and I don't see a nurse. Okay, so there's no way to get a nurse, is there? I believe the nurses have skills that fit the same because you have something with the pharmacy is an example of one. You'll notice that I don't have anybody with pharmacy, and the reason why is because I want them to be able to work anywhere. So the point that I'm making is in this particular hospital, I'm not using the pharmacy skill. I'm allowing anybody to do the work in any aspect that they can so that I can see if it's more efficient that way. Because if a nurse has pharmacy skill and she goes and works in another department, the pharmacy skill is not going to help. And what it allows you to do is it allows you to work on a smaller staff that doesn't have that specialized skill. So you might want to try a variety of skills in different hospitals because it's just a game, it's just a game, it's just a game. There is one level that's really tough and you have to do everything right. Okay, it looks like injection is one of the other ones. Like if pharmacy and injection are both nurse skills, you could give it to the same nurse or you can make the pharmacy nurse with 4 diagnostics or pharmacy nurse with 4 treatment, etc. You can mix and match some of the skills around. And the same goes with psychiatry and diagnostics and general practice, because what can happen is some of those employees, some of those doctors, like this one right over here, you see he's all diagnostics. He could have other skills. It doesn't have to be all diagnostics. He could be maybe all psychiatry, and then when he goes and does the psychiatry, he can help out. Like here's an example where we got a guy who does radiology and diagnostics. See what I mean? And with the psychiatry, you need a psychiatrist to do psychiatry. There's no exception to that. So what you can do is have your psychiatrist with all psychiatry. He can go and help out in
what's it called? The general practitioner, but he cannot. The general practitioner cannot work in psychiatry. So that's something you might want to do if you want to keep your staff a little bit lower. You notice that I got a lot of guys over here waiting, even though there is staff over here, and I know that the GP gets really busy, but sometimes you got to make that sacrifice. You know, you're going to have to decide, find another way to make them more efficient. So you can play around with the training skills a little bit. Maybe you only need one. You definitely only need one. You don't need two or three. And I never use more than three. And the other thing is, I'm usually running the training rooms constantly throughout the game. So you're going to also ask, what do you do when you recruit a guy and he's got a bunch of skills that you don't like? You can't get rid of the skills. So sometimes you got to recruit someone that has skills you don't want, and then you got to fire them later, and you're going to have to go through all of your doctors and nurses and look at what they have, and you're going to have to fire some of them and rehire. And I do look at the individual. For example, if he has a big penalty, maybe I won't. Like this one, it says litterer, and I don't know what this. Okay, it just says litterer. He's litterer and hygienic. I mean, come on. If they have something that's overly negative, I won't hire them. Try to make an effort. Maybe not at the beginning of the game when you're just starting out. Try to make an effort to hire people who have some sort of a bonus and work with them. The other thing I do is I hire people with only one skill and I level them up, and I avoid the ones with two skills when you're hiring, so that it's just easier to go through the training process. Okay, that's a little bit about training your staff. If you got any questions or comments, please post below.